Hey everybody, I'm at GalaxyCon in Richmond, Virginia. It's like kind of like a Comic-Con. I'm really excited. I got my Beauty and the Beast shirt on. I'm mainly here for the Beauty and the Beast kind of question and answer. It's going to be Paige O'Hara that voices Belle, and Richard White who voices Gaston, some of my favorite characters. We're going to go wait right now. Alright, we made it here. All the exhibits. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of costumes. Let's check it out.
GalaxyCon, how are you guys feeling? Now that is more like it. All right, without any further ado, I'm going to bring to the stage, let's introduce first, Richard White! How you doing, Richard?
I'm doing so well, it's great.
All right, and now let's bring up Paige O'Hara! First of all, Richard, your swag walking onto that stage. I think I saw a little bit of Gaston in you walking out there.
A little bit. I was going for the whole thing.
I've known him since 1980. It's natural for him.
So thank you guys so much for being here this weekend. Like, this is amazing. I think one of the coolest things about being at these conventions is seeing people that get to dress up and emulate your characters. So what is it like to just see, you know, Gaston and Belle just walking around this convention this week? I see one right there.
Oh, yes, we have a couple out there. I
It's
love
very
it.
cool. Sometimes you see 4 or 5 bells lined up, you know, at one time. So that's a little bit disconcerting. But, it's great, and it's not just that, because you come to these conventions and you see bells, but you also see characters from all sorts of things, and it's amazing.
I love it. I never had the nerve to do that when I was younger. I admire their courage. I love meeting all the fans and hearing their stories and seeing all the different bells dress up.
And they all look, I mean, absolutely stunning. And so out of curiosity, okay, so you said that you never had the nerve to do it, but if you could do it now, who would you guys dress up as?
Oh boy, Scarlett Johansson and the Avengers. I love her. I'm trying to convince Disney to let me play her mother in a film that she's going to be doing. I could kickbox. I'm a martial artist. I'm not on her level, but I could give her a run for her money.
What about you?
Oh, Gaston.
Oh.
Once you've been the best, how can you know?
And people would see you dressed up and be like, you sound just like him.
I know, I've heard that.
Richard and I are old Broadway people, so when Richard recorded Gaston, the mic was like out here. When he sings, he fills it like an opera house. It's like crazy. It's great.
So let's talk about that. I mean, I don't think you were in the production together, but both of you had been in Showboat. Is that true?
We actually did it together.
You did it together? Really?
Yeah.
We did.
Not only
Houston
did we
Grand
do it
Opera.
together, we did it in Egypt together.
We went to Cairo Opera House in Egypt. And actually, I just met Michael and started dating him, my husband, and I asked him for our first date to join me in Cairo, and he turned me down. He said, what if we don't get along? So anyway, Richard and I had a great time. And yeah, we were at Houston Grand Opera, and the opera singers and people in the company did not like the food in Egypt, so next thing we know, they're flying over an entire Texas barbecue restaurant from Texas to Egypt to feed all of us. It was crazy. It was really fun, though. But then we got a cruise down the Nile at the end of it.
So you guys knew each other before the production? So what was
Oh,
that?
yeah.
What was that like? I mean, that's like a full circle. First you're doing Broadway, and then you're doing one of the biggest movies of all time.
my gosh.
Did it help that you guys knew each other beforehand?
I think so.
We got to pick on each other more.
Yeah, I mean, when you know somebody, you know how
Yeah.
they work, and you've done various things with them, you
Yeah.
know, it's easy to immediately establish a rapport. But a lot of what you do when you record these movies, the way Disney works, is you work in a room by yourself. So it really doesn't matter whether you've met someone or know them very well. To a large extent, we had some sessions together.
We did, because
Yeah.
I had them change the rules. I don't know how Robbie Benson and I managed to do it, but we convinced them to let us record together as Belle and Beast. And it was going so well with the spontaneity and and the development of the characters together. I mean, my character came to fruition when Robbie was hired. I was actually recording Beauty and the Beast a month before he was hired. And literally the day that he came in, it all came together for me. And it went so well that Richard and I got to record together. And then
my first session was with Jesse Cordy,
who played LeFou. Yeah.
So that's unusual compared to how they usually do these things, because like I say, you're usually by yourself. But I worked with Jesse, and then later on they brought us out to LA, and we did a session out there.
Yes, our first scene, and I got to pick on you, and then they like, cut, Paige, you can't say that as Belle, you know, that's Belle, can't say that.
Somebody told me today that Gaston picks on Belle. What? Gaston is so sweet. I mean, really.
Really? Really? Okay, don't have me go there, you know, I will.
Well, to piggyback off of that, Richard, so Gaston, I mean, in maybe most of our eyes, he would be considered, and I use this term lightly, like the villain.
I heard that word today, yes.
Okay, so how do you get into the mentality of playing a role like Gaston?
That's hurtful. I think that Gaston is deeply misunderstood. And obviously they agree with me. No, I'm teasing, but you know, anytime you play...
Tell them your other theory about Gaston coming back.
Well, somebody mentioned to me that you see skulls in Gaston's eyes, and that's true, but they're sympathetic skulls. You never see a body.
He thinks he's coming back.
Her laugh. See, this is what happens to Gaston. She laughs at him. The poor guy. To be more serious, when you play a character like this, you just have to revel in him. He loves himself so well, and that's so much fun to do. I mean, I think everybody wishes they could be Gaston in that regard, at least.
You
so
know,
he's
it's
great
true.
fun to do.
And I have to say, Richard, I'm not going to pick on you this time.
That you've never seen anyone love themselves as well as me.
Exactly. You took it right out of my mouth. But I have to tell you, I'm a diehard Disney fan my whole life, and I think your Gaston is the funniest villain ever to be portrayed in any Disney movie. I really believe that.
Thank you very much.
Howard Ashman agreed with me. Howard Ashman, the great Howard, said you were the funniest villain ever.
Well, thank you. As long as we're actually complimenting one another, I have to admit, one of the most fascinating things about this film, to me, is the character of Belle. She is not typical. She is not the typical Disney princess. She was a great divergent from what was typical, in that she stands up to the town bully. She reads. Can you imagine? No pictures or anything. She reads. And I have heard many fans suggest that their fascination with books and their feeling that it's okay to be an intellectual, to read, to be
different,
to seek an education, to be themselves, started with her.
Yeah.
And but that wasn't just Disney. That wasn't just the people who wrote this. That was Paige's influence. You know,
well,
she would talk
Richard.
to Howard, and that's where that came from.
Well, you know, me and also Linda Wolverton, who wrote the screenplay. Linda and I were like shared Belle. We were both Belle, and Howard kind of pulled it out of me. Said, "I want you to be yourself." And that was kind of hard. Now, we've been Broadway performers, and you can kind of hide behind the characters that you play on Broadway, but when they say, no, we want you, it's a whole kind of vulnerability that happens when you have to let the guard down and be yourself. But consequently, that's what they wanted with Belle, and I think that's why I was cast, because I was the oddball. I was that person, you know, in high school, you know, into Gershwin and friends into Led Zeppelin, you know, it's like, you know, I was odd. I was in theater, you know. But I have to give credit to that. But also, Richard and I both know, with a movie like this, it's not just me as Belle or Richard, it's the animators, it's all the people that work on the characters. So Mark Henn, James Baxter, who animated Belle, Linda Wolverton, the directors, we kind of all share the character.
Andreas, yeah. Until I met
Andreas
and talked to him and saw what he was doing visually with the character.
Yeah.
And like you say, it all comes together eventually. It's an amazingly collaborative
It is.
art form which you don't realize. You don't realize going in, and perhaps watching it, you don't realize. But each person along that trail, each animator, each
Yes.
sound operator, each orchestrator contributes an amazing amount, and everybody works together until you finally get this finished thing. I laid down Gaston in the first week
Yes.
that I was called in, and we didn't finish. My actual work on the film didn't finish until more than 2 years later, 2.5, 3 years later.
That's right. That's right.
Because once you've done what you do, then they start drawing, and then they come back to you and say, okay, we've drawn ourselves into a corner, and you work your way back out, and then it goes through that whole process again and again and again until they're happy with what they end up with.
And actually, the film took 4 years to make. People forget, for an average animator hand drawing, it takes them an entire week to draw 4 seconds of film. And I hope the hand drawing comes back. I really miss it. Thank you. Yes. A lot of our friends, a lot of animators lost their jobs, and I'm hoping that has come back very soon.
I have a wonderful image in my mind about that. The first time I went to Glendale, they had my character, Gaston, was being drawn in Glendale at that time. And they had a big trailer. And inside the trailer, it was corridoned off into various little cells where people were working individually, like an office building, and each cell was maybe that high. And I walked in, and I was talking to Don Hahn, who was the producer, and all of a sudden, these drawers, these artists who had been listening to my voice for over a year, heard my real voice, and they started popping up out of their cells. It was almost like whack-a-mole, as each one sticks his head up, pretty soon they were all up looking, trying to stare at the street.
I know, me too. When I first saw the pictures of all the beautiful actresses they were using as Belle as a role model, they had like Audrey Hepburn and Natalie Wood and Liz Taylor, and then my funny picture on the bottom. I'm like, this doesn't really fit. And she said, well, actually, we're taking a lot of your quirkiness and putting it in. I think that's really cool. I don't know if any of you guys saw the original Belle before. It's in books and whatever that they had before I was cast, and she was so perfect. She looked like perfect 18-year-old Angelina Jolie. I mean, it was like so perfect that she would not be approachable. And they decided they wanted Belle to be not only approachable but embraceable. And so I was glad they changed her looks and made her the way she is, and the brown hair and brown eyes. Yeah.
So, before we open this up for questions, obviously your film was groundbreaking. I mean, you're talking about the animators and everybody that went into creating this masterpiece. And it was the first animated film to be nominated for the Best Picture at the Academy Awards.
First and last.
First and last. When you guys were creating this, did you know, like when you were actually making this film, did you know that it was going to be as special as it is?
Well, I think it was the night of the New York Film Festival. Remember that night? Because Richard and I know the New York critics. I mean, we've been on Broadway our whole career, so we know how tough they can be. And Disney did something very daring, which was to show an unfinished version of Beauty and the Beast. Part of it was fully animated, some of it was just hand-drawn. You could just see the sketches, but all the music and dialogue was there, and we presented it to the film festival in Manhattan. And I've never seen Don Hahn. I thought he was gonna have a heart attack that night, and Jeffrey Katzenberg, the way they were pacing. And lo and behold, after the first number, they burst into applause. They applauded Richard's number, and at the end of the festival, they all stood up for 10 minutes and cheered. I think it was that night that we knew this was going to make history, at least for me.
But the idea that an animated film would be nominated for Best Picture, no, I don't. I mean, that was a surprise.
Yeah.
That was a very pleasant surprise. From the moment that you're cast, or that somebody talks about you doing a Disney animated film, you have a sense that you're part of history, and that you're creating a classic before it's ever been created, because Disney takes such care and has such pride. There's such history with the company, with these films, and you knew that at least you were going to get the best possible attention that you could. And so I was very proud of the piece before I ever began.
Yeah, I was too. And Robbie Benson was such a key part of that as well. And it was really cool for the Oscars. Our songs were nominated and whatever, and they were going to have pop stars sing our songs. And Jeffrey Katzenberg said to the Academy, if you don't use Richard and Paige and Jerry Orbach and Angela Lansbury, then you can't have the songs. So they backed down and we got to sing. We didn't win Richard, we sang on the Oscars. I remember Angela Lansbury was introducing me, and we were standing in the wings, and I was shaking like a leaf, and I looked at Angela, and she was shaking like a leaf. And I said, Angie, are you nervous? And she said, Paige, when you get to be my age, you learn when you're supposed to be nervous, this is it. And then she leaned over and said, but honey, if I sang like you, I wouldn't be nervous. And she gave me a little pat on my very scary costume that I had on. That's another story. They put me in this Bo Peep outfit. Oh my God, it looked nothing like Belle. I'm sharing a dressing room with Celine Dion. They come to the door an hour before to say, Miss Dion, we'd like you to wear your red dress instead of your black dress. And she looked at them, she said, I paid a lot of money for the black dress. I prefer the black dress, thank you. Back to her makeup. And I'm wearing this Bo Peep striped kind of ugly dress with pantaloons. I mean, it was the most horrible thing. I just could not tell the designer I wouldn't wear it, but I had to wear it. So I'm looking at myself and I'm going, how did she do that? And she just said, Paige, you have to learn to be a... And I said, thank you, Celine, I'm going to take your advice. So this younger Celine Dion, 12, 13 years younger than me, was giving me very good advice. There you go. And she looked great, and I looked stupid in my pantaloon dress, but I sang well.
She's taken it well to heart, though.
Even Debbie Allen, who was choreographing, came into the dressing room. She said, they put you in this? She said, did you bring anything else you could wear? And I said, well, I have just a plain dress. She said, wear it. And I said, and then of course, it was a whole ordeal. But anyway.
You still got to perform at the Oscars.
I still got to sing at the Oscars. And I walk out and the first thing I see is Barbara Streisand in the front row. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to have a heart attack right this moment. But it was great. And then Richard comes out, no nerves at all.
No, I didn't have time. Paige has said that, you know, we're working actors on Broadway, and I was doing a production of Oklahoma. I was playing Curly, and my hair was long and curled out, and they had me come. I flew in that day and did the Oscars, and I wasn't even able to go to any of the parties.
I know you were.
I had to get on a plane and come back because we were in tech, so yeah.
You didn't even get to see me. I made the best dressed list. I did, a Bob Mackie gown. It was really fun. Kathy Lee Gifford got pissed at me. She said, I made the worst dressed list, Paige. This is not fair. I wore a Bob Mackie too. And I was like, Kathy Lee, yours isn't as pretty as mine. We like each other.
See what I mean about she took a lesson from Celine?
You guys are awesome. Just want to, this is amazing. So, there is a microphone that's set up right over yonder, and now is your chance. Is anything
that Belle gave up her life for her father was not as poignant to me as it is at 63 years old, and losing my parents and my sister, and the whole reality of the circle of life of that means so much more as you're older. And I don't think I truly appreciated that enough when I recorded Belle, as I do now. And the genius of Linda Wolverton for writing that scene.
Okay. Richard, did you take anything from Gaston?
I didn't learn so much, take from Gaston to live the rest of my life, but I have to admit that allowing myself to be Gaston was a valuable lesson, you know, to let yourself
he usually plays the heroes.
Enjoy yourself.
I mean, you don't usually, you're the leading man usually. So that was fun to be a hero.
Once upon a time, perhaps.
Thank you.
But yeah, letting myself really delve into a character like that is great fun and a worthy thing for anyone to do.
Thank you.
well, how many dozens of eggs can you eat?
Oh, I'm still stuck on 5.
Oh, okay.
Hi, I had a quick question for Richard. There's a popular theory on the internet that Gaston is actually the hero, and I was wondering if back in the day, did you have any idea that he would be a tragic hero, and did that inform your performance of him and bring the humanity in Gaston to light?
See, I don't understand why that's a rumor. Really, I mean, of course I'm joking, but only partly. You know, he really is somebody who just loves his life and thinks of himself as the hero. So of course, and I am waiting for the next version of this when he comes back to life. Somebody said, well, it's a long fall, even if you didn't see the body, but he's a tough guy.
There was snow and rain, so it might have been mushy.
It might have been soft. It's probably soft. Yeah.
Oh, look how cute you look.
Do you mind tilting down the mic so we can hear you?
Somebody.
Perfect.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Erica, and I'm an actor too.
Wonderful.
And I played in the movie Alice in Wonderland and Grease.
Wow.
That's
And,
awesome.
Yeah. I have a question for Belle. So, do you like when you're in the movie? Do you like acting when you're at the Beast Castle?
Do I like it? When you're
Yeah.
at the Beast Castle.
Oh, at the Beast Castle. Oh, I loved acting at the Beast Castle. And that's not where all the great stuff happens.
My favorite part was when the teapot started singing the Beauty and the Beast song.
Oh, wasn't it beautiful? And when they dance,
One of our favorite.
when they showed the ballroom in that circle, that was the new invention of that technology that allowed them to do that, where you actually see them dancing. That was, and now they've used it a lot of times since then. But that was the invention of that. I love that scene too. My favorite is the snow scene leading into that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck with your acting, honey.
Hi, my name's Sydney.
I see.
Thank you guys for just playing my favorite villain and princess in my favorite Disney movie, so just thank you for that.
Thank you.
If your characters had another friend within the Disney universe, who would it be outside of your movie?
Mulan.
Yes!
Absolutely. Mulan.
That boy, that's a hard, you know, well.
Would you be the genie? Would you be friends with the genie from?
Yeah, that's
I
not
can
a
see
bad
you
one.
in
There's so
Ratatouille.
there's so many wonderful villains in general. I mean, Hook is just delicious too,
Okay.
and Hook loves himself too in much the same.
Actually, that's a good answer.
I'm not sure that Gaston and Hook might not be buds.
Yeah, I too much like each other, you know?
Yeah. I don't know. There's Gaston has no problem with crocodiles that I know of. So, and Hook never took a long fall like that. So, yeah, I think they would meld well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I smell a spin-off. What's your name?
Robert, and I was wondering what your initial reactions to the Beauty and the Beast remake were.
I actually got to go to the premiere, which was really fun, and I had not met Emma Watson yet, but we'd been sending messages back and forth through Don Hahn, and I was there, and my husband was with me, and Emma was about where you are, and I went like this and waved her, and she went, Paige O'Hara! And like everybody stopped, and a full voice came over, gave me this big hug, and we got to talk and visit, and she was incredibly sweet, and that made the whole beginning before I watched the movie, because I was so nervous, a lot easier. And I really liked it a lot. I thought it was really wonderful. I thought it was more of an adult movie than ours, and a lot darker. I wouldn't have gone the dark route like they did for the character of your character, as to the extent Don Hahn agreed with me on some of that, which he said he lost that battle with the director. But I thought it was really wonderful, and I don't know, what did you think? I'm curious.
I thought it was alright, but nothing can even come close to the original.
Thank you. See, I can't say that with sounding person.
I can. But I wouldn't. I saw it in New York, and when they did the press opening in New York. And I found it charming. I found the people charming. Those actors, I love those actors. I enjoyed it. As Paige has said, it's a lot darker. It's a very, very different movie than the one that we made. And the characters themselves are very different from the ones that we played. I mean, my Gaston didn't have PTSD, as far as I know.
Well, the Beast being older, being an adult.
And there was, yeah, absolutely. There was no bubonic plague in our film either. So, you know, there were a number of things that they did that were very, very different and that put a different color on the whole piece. So, but I was charmed by what they did and those people. I love those actors. So I had a good time.
The great actors, you have to admit that. Oh, and Kevin Kline, I mean, my gosh, he's always brilliant. Whatever he does, I can't wait to see it.
And what a different father.
Yeah.
So.
But thank you for that.
So I think that as the society in general is more accepting and more inclusive, I think that Disney will continue to be.
I hope they do. It's about time.
Yeah.
And that's very important. I don't know, a lot of you know this. This is way back when, but talking about LGBT, that community. But in the gay community, he was very strong in the animators department. And Michael Eisner was the first CEO to pay health insurance to their gay employees' lovers. And the first person in America to do that. And there were other CEOs who followed from that. And I think a lot of people don't remember that. I remember it was a big deal when we heard about it. And we, living in New York in the 80s and 90s.
And it touched home
we were,
for us personally in our movie.
Exactly, because Richard and I were at a funeral every week with AIDS in the 80s and 90s. It was a very tough time. And for Mr. Eisner to do that made him heroic in my eyes.
Thank you so much.
Oh, no, she got it. All right. What's your name?
Lillian, I love Disney, and I was wondering, Belle, are you friends with any of the Disney princess speakers?
Other Disney princesses? Well, Ariel is one of my longtime oldest friends. Jodie Benson and I have been friends since 1980, another Broadway girl, and her husband Ray and I did the Broadway revival of Oklahoma in 1980. I was Ada Lanny, and he was Lara Teeter's understudy. And he told me in rehearsal, oh man, I've got it bad. I've fallen in love with this girl. And I met Jodie while we were on the road doing Oklahoma, and that's how long they've been together. That's a long time. And they've grown children now. And Jodie and I, we're great buddies. And Linda Larkin is the voice of Jasmine, and I, over the past year, I got her to do these events with me. We've been touring and doing a lot of these together, and I've grown to just absolutely love her as a sister. And so it's all good. And actually, if you saw Wreck-It Ralph 2, the Breaks the Internet, we didn't get to work together on that, but we all partied together. And we had 2 big parties of celebrations, and I got to know a lot of the girls, and Kristen Bell and Mandy and those people I hadn't met before. And we had a blast. It was really fun. Thank you.
Princess Power.
Princess Power, yes! Good. That's perfect. I love her. You've got what it takes, girl.
What's your name?
Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Kate. My question is, what was your first reaction when you guys first saw the Beats at the Beats for the first time?
You mean on the
screen?
As he was drawn?
Yes.
Well, that was just astonishing to me. How they incorporated so many of the things. Of course, I didn't just see him in his finished form. I saw him in various stages of his development, just as Gaston himself went through lots of different stages and had lots of different looks. So did the Beast. But watching how he put that together was amazing. The different animals that he incorporated and studied in order for them to come up with this different monster. He doesn't look like anything that you've ever seen before.
I mean, he took like, what, 10 different animals? A buffalo, a moose, and all these different...
A great ape,
and Ape, and Robbie Benson, actually, when he was recording it, he would end up really sore. He would end up, they have shape.
Method actor, you know?
He's method. His body would be contorted and everything. I'm like, Robbie, I'm going to pretend like I'm Laurence Olivier. Try acting, it's much easier. Remember that story with Dustin Hoffman? That's another story. That's way before your time. But anyway, Robbie would end up really sore, and I'm rubbing his neck on the brakes. But it was amazing what Glenn Keane achieved with that. Glenn Keane also animated Ariel. He's a genius.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's your name?
Hi, my name's Suzanne. Thanks for being here earlier to sign autographs. I know a lot of fans really appreciate that. I have a question for Miss O'Hara. I seem to recall a YouTube video where I saw you painting, and I was wondering if you could share a little bit about that with us. Apparently you have another skill.
Thank you for that. I've actually been painting since I was 3 years old. And when I moved to New York at 17, I would paint at night and sell my paintings on the street, 84th and Broadway, and clean apartments and do whatever I could do to pay my rent. But I've always been an artist, and it was about 10 years ago, I went to an event with one of their greatest artists, and Manny, and they said, well, bring one of your paintings, Paige, let's try it. And I brought one of my Belle paintings, which I've been doing for friends, and the president of Disney Fine Art was there that night, and they signed me, and I'm now one of their top 5 selling artists.
I've seen a lot of her paintings, and they're really wonderful. In fact, Paige has promised to give me one.
Hold her to it.
I will do it,
Thank
Richard,
you.
I promise. Thank you.
What are your favorite things to paint?
Well, I love painting Beauty and the Beast, but I most recently had the chance to paint Ariel for the Steelbox re-release of the 30th anniversary. The artwork of Ariel and the background is all my artwork, and that was fun. So it's really fun. I'm painting all the princesses now. Some of them are harder than others. Moana is very difficult, but I just finished her, and I'm very excited about that. My Tiana sells like crazy. She's very popular, so it's fun.
Hi, my name's Kate. I met Richard earlier. First of all, let me just say thank you for the memories that you guys have given me since I was gay big, and I can say that for everybody, I think. Sorry. And second of all, what was your favorite memory since you've given us so many?
I'm sorry, what was
your
our
favorite memory as far as making the movie?
Is with the movie itself.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's so many. It's like,
we had a wonderful session, that first session in LA on the original Foley floor. Remember that?
yeah.
That was a time when I really said, okay, this really is happening. We really are getting to do this, and I felt like my skills were being really used in that thing. So that was a wonderful memory there. But I think when we had the orchestra.
I was about to say the same thing.
For the first time, when you walk in, we'd been hearing the music played
on piano.
On the piano before that, and we'd heard Howard sing it, and we learned it, and we were singing it. But when we finally got the orchestra in there for the first time and heard all of those colors,
See, we're talking almost 100-piece orchestra.
Yeah, it's sort of like when Dorothy first lands in Oz and everything is suddenly in color. That's kind of what it is to first hear an orchestra play those things, and that's a wonderful memory for me.
And I was going to say the same one, and what's really interesting too, the people that did the chorus in that were all Broadway stars. I mean, if you look at the list, Judy Kay and all these people that are stars on Broadway, but they wanted to be a part of it, and and Alan just called up his friends and said, "You want to do this?" And that was really special. But for me, I've always been an Angela Lansbury freak. I saw her in Gypsy probably 7 times. I would second act it when I was 17 and sneak in at intermission and watch the second half. And she was the most brilliant Mama Rose, and when I got to meet her. But the coolest thing was, Angie was really nervous about singing the title song. And she was saying, to Alan, I don't have the line in my voice anymore, and I don't know, well, the night before she was going to record with us that day, she got stuck in another city. There was some sort of bomb threat. She had no sleep for almost 24 hours, and she arrived at the studio, and Don Hahn said, "You don't have to sing, Angie. We'll do this another day." She says, "No, I'll give it a try," or whatever. She gets up to the microphone, She sings the title song of Beauty and the Beast in one take, not a dry eye in the house, and that is the take that's in the movie. She is perfection, Miss Lansbury. Royalty.
The Academy also, on the 25th anniversary,
Yes.
had an event in California at the Academy, and she was the surprise guest. Alan played, and then she walked out and sang the title song.
And you know, that afternoon she told me again she didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
And she said, Paige, I'm so nervous because Alan is playing it way too slow. I can't sing it that slow. And I said, Angie, sing at your tempo, he'll follow you. He will follow. She said, oh, I hope he does.
And it was perfect.
And she was perfect.
It was broadcast all over the place. It went viral, so I imagine most
Yeah,
of
you can Google it. It's really special.
haven't seen it, but it's amazing.
And I'm sure you saw her in Mary Poppins Returns. She can still sing at 93. She's amazing. Yeah. My idol.
Well, I would love to take a swing at Hook. Yeah. The Wicked Witch is also very appealing. I think I could bring a lot to the Wicked Witch. I'm only partially kidding there. I really would love to get a chance to do that. She's French.
Oh my gosh. I can't answer it. I don't know. I mean, I love Mulan so much, but the original voices are perfect, so I couldn't do it any better. But I have to say Mulan is the reason I took up kickboxing. And I love it. At my age, it helps me stay in shape, so it's all good.
Don't mess with Belle.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we only have about 5 minutes left, so try to get through as many questions as possible.
What's your name? Hi, I'm Patrice. I wanted to say thank you to Paige because you are my favorite princess, and Beauty and the Beast is my favorite movie.
Thank you.
And this question is actually for you. As a Disney princess, how does it make you feel being such an inspiration to not only the younger generation, but the older generation as well?
You know, it's been a life-changing experience to do this role. When I meet people like I did today, and I hear your stories, and I hear about a lot of you who were like me that felt like you were outcast, you were different, you weren't accepted, and that Belle gives you that kind of courage. Those are the stories that I kind of pinch myself and say, thank you, God, for letting me do this and be a part of this person that was so brilliantly written by Linda Wolverton and created by all these wonderful people, and that they allowed me to put some of my crazy self into it. But it's people like you and people that find strength from Belle that make me realize I have the best job in the whole world.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Britt. You guys both mentioned that you're both big Broadway stars and that you starred in a lot of shows. How did you feel about the Broadway remake of Beauty and the Beast? Were you ever asked to be a part of it in any way, shape, or form? And are there songs in it that you wished you could have performed during your time as Belle and Gaston?
Oh, I wish Home would have been in the movie. Yes, oh my gosh. And I was so sad that they had to cut Human Again, because Human Again was Howard Ashman's favorite song, but it made it in the one version of it. I loved it, I enjoyed it. Actually, when it was first casting, Jeffrey Katzenberg actually said to me, if you want to do this, you need to let me know. And I had just signed a contract for a 14-month tour in Australia as Nellie in South Pacific. And I thought I should stick with that contract, and there's also a part of me that thought I was just too old to play it at that point, and that I'd get picked on by the critics. I know, and later, you know, even Susan Egan said, you're crazy, thank you for turning it down, and I came in the part of my life. And Susan reminded me of a little me, and I loved her in it. And my husband played the Beast opposite Susan Egan, so that was really fun to watch him play it. And he did the Los Angeles company with Susan, and we had a lot of friends, Leroy Reams and all these great people that played it.
But none of us who did the film did the Broadway version, and that was partially by design. They didn't want to compare one. They wanted it to be different and separate.
Because
so
truthfully,
it wouldn't be a criticism or a comparison.
I think they made a mistake. They should have hired him. Of all of us, I think, Richard, you could have done the Beast or Gaston.
If you bring in Gaston, the real Gaston. Everybody else is going to, you know.
Oh, no.
No, it wouldn't have been fair.
But it was fun, and you know, I'll tell you what, the real quick story how it even happened. They weren't going to do any of these on Broadway, and Jeffrey Katzenberg asked me and Richard one night for Michael Eisner's birthday to do a performance at what was it, one of the fancy hotels in New York. Anyway, we did a concert version, and Michael Eisner at this point said, no, we're not going to do Broadway versions of these, blah, 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 blah. That night, Mr. Eisner saw us do the concert version, Regis and Kathy.
I think that Gaston, I can see many rewrites in that last scene, you know, when the Beast turns around and starts to fight with him, how he could have lots of different character permutations at that point. And I think that you would have loved him, whichever one they picked.
You look like a Disney princess, doesn't she? Thanks, you guys. You've been wonderful.
Overall, GalaxyCon was really, really fun. The panel was really, really cool. It was really cool to see Paige and Richard in person. They sounded just like their characters, which is really funny. I guess I should have expected that, but I thought that maybe that was just a voice that they were putting on for their character. No, it was so cute. They sounded just like the movie. I hope you enjoyed the panel as much as I did. In the comments below, let me know what's your favorite character from Beauty and the Beast. I'd love to hear from you. If you like this video, please give me a like. If you want to see more, hit subscribe. Thanks, until next time.